I'm gonna rate Captain America: Civil War 7.5 out of 10.
I'm gonna rate this movie an 9 out of 10.
I'm going to give this movie a 9 out of 10.
So overall, I thought that Civil War was a very enjoyable movie with a lot of great things, but there's two big problems I have with it that I think really weigh the movie down. And those problems is that one, I personally feel that the story or how they go about it doesn't have enough impact as it should, where other than Cap, Iron Man, and Black Panther, no one really seems to have that good of a reason to be fighting each other, and no one seems to be taking it that seriously. And I understand that it's Marvel and things tend to be more lighthearted, and I don't want it to be really dark. I don't want these people to be killing each other. I just want everyone I just feel like everyone should have been more committed and set and more serious about it than they were. And the other problem is that the end of the movie, I feel like the Russos had a hard time finishing a cohesive story, not completely brushing aside Civil War and the fact that it hasn't been completely resolved, but also making sure that ends up in a place where next time these characters are all together, they can be together in the next Avengers movie. I just felt that it didn't come together completely because of all these things that they had to balance out. But other than those two problems, I mostly liked, other than that, the villain, he was a very human character. He was interesting, but the fact that he is Baron Zemo was just disappointing because he's nothing like his counterpart and he's just not menacing at all. He's just a guy in this, and I just was like, well, why even use him if you're not going to have him anything like it at all? He's not necessarily a bad character in the movie. He just isn't a good version of Baron Zemo. And the only other thing is the other Winter Soldiers, I felt that they degraded Bucky and made him seem less special, since it's there's at least 5 others of you. You're not the only one. He's the Winter Soldier. He's this one of a kind killing machine, but now he isn't that special. And the other things are more powerful and better than him from what they made it. So I didn't like that because it degraded the Winter Soldier in my opinion. But other than that, the movie does a very good job of balancing out the many things it has to deal with, which is there's all these characters. There's more characters in this than there has been in any other Marvel movie, and it overall does a good job of giving the right characters the right amount of screen time and the right amount of material. Because you can't give everyone full character arcs and things, but everyone you at least understand where they're coming from. And Captain America and Iron Man are at their most compelling here. Especially Iron Man, he's as interesting as he was in the first Iron Man. And I feel like since the first Iron Man, he's always been a really great character, but he hasn't had really interesting things and really deep character arcs in this. But in this, you really understand what is going on in his head, and you completely get why he's doing this, whether you agree with him or not. And the same goes for Cap. And since you understand both these sides, it makes it more interesting when they end up fighting. So the Russos did very well. They do a good job of balancing out this more darker, serious story, but they sprinkle in humor everywhere, and it makes it, the movie isn't weighed down by the darkness. It's still lighthearted and fun Marvel movie. The action, it's some of the best in my opinion in any of the Marvel movies. While like in the Winter Soldier, there is some shaky cam and close cutting in certain action scenes. For the most part, most of the action is really amazing, and one of them is probably the best action scene in any Marvel movie, and the rest of it is very good overall too. So overall, I did really like it, but those two problems weigh the movie down a lot for me.
So, I felt that this was consistent, with the Marvel movies. I didn't really feel like a Civil War thing where, they're trying to kill each other or something would make any sense, because you have no real build up to that. The characters they're friends with each other. They're not going to start killing each other randomly. I guess they could make a reason that they would, but there's not really any possible reason where that would really make sense. It's kind of like a Batman versus Superman thing where in that movie it just felt way too forced that these two characters were trying to kill each other, and it just didn't make any sense, and I don't think it would in any context in this series of movies. As a whole, I agree with at the end of the movie, you kind of felt like it didn't have a huge climax. It's like Captain America Iron Man's really mad at Captain America, and Captain America leaves his shield behind, but then he sends them this kind of nice message at the end, and it just kind of seems like they're all right again or something. It just didn't. It wasn't very conclusive of an ending at all. It's like you don't really know, like, the next movie, are they going to be interacting with each other, or like what's going on now? So that I was kind of like waiting for it to wrap up because it was taking really long. It felt like for things to happen. I was kind of like, when is this gonna, like, where's the conclusion gonna be at? And it kind of felt like the conclusion was a little bit not very conclusive, I guess. I liked all the acting. I felt Chris Evans, this might have been his best performance as Captain America, or the best script that he had. He really felt like Captain America. And I think it helped that he had a lot of people. There's a lot of people he was interacting with that were on his side and against him. And he felt more like he was, I don't know, like in a position of command, I guess. Where in some of the other Avenger movies, it feels like he's just kind of like Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, you know.
I think a lot of people show like respect for Cap in this movie, and like they sort of see him as this leader figure, and that does help.
Yeah, and I thought there's a lot of characters in this movie. I guess in a movie you can question whether characters have to have some, you know, have to be a critical part of the story to be in the story. Spider-Man really didn't provide anything in the story. He was cool. He was fun to see. I really liked the actor. I really liked the scenes, but it didn't really add to the story at all. It was a long movie. Did they really need that? It was kind of just fan service, kind of just something to attract the crowd. And like Hawkeye, he felt a little bit like they didn't really do much with his character. Not that they ever really do that much. I mean, they try to. In the Avengers 2, it felt kind of forced, but that's kind of off topic. Black Panther, I really liked his character. It was a character arc where he's going after the man that he wants to kill, and then at the end he decides not to kill him. And I thought that was well done.
Okay, I slightly disagree with both of you guys. I have mixed feelings about the ending, but I think it works for the most part in an Empire Strikes Back kind of way. And I know a lot of people, when The Empire Strikes Back first came out, were kind of unsure about it because it felt so inconclusive. And I sort of like how there's still this animosity between Cap and Iron Man at the end that feels kind of natural, where, you know, they're friends still because they kind of understand each other, but there's this thing that's happened in this rift, and they can't quite forgive each other yet. So I thought that worked for me, at least. I would agree that some of the characters' motivations aren't fleshed out enough, and that Spider-Man probably doesn't really need to be in this movie, although I really liked him in the movie. It kind of reminds me of Quicksilver from X-Men Days of Future Past. He doesn't really need to be there. He just kind of comes in and comes out and has this really cool scene, but he doesn't really need to be there. But nevertheless...
At least he actually helped to get him out of jail, where Spider-Man, he helped, but it's like...
Yeah, like really anyone could have done it. Yeah, that's true. I didn't like the chase scene in the middle of the movie. I complain about chase scenes a lot in movies, but I just found it hard to follow. And there's a lot of things where like a car will come in out of nowhere, and there's not enough establishing shots, I feel like. But for the most part, I do really like the action. I think the action scene in the middle where they all fight is probably maybe my favorite action scene from any comic book movie, and it's probably like one of the most comic booky action scenes just ever. So that was really fun, and yeah, I really just enjoyed this movie a lot overall, although I do think it has some problems.
Yeah, and I would say it's one of the most comic book feeling movies I've seen, because there's all these comic book characters, and they're always in it, and they're always interacting, and it's just, you know, it's even more, I mean, almost more than the Avengers, because there's more characters in it.
Yeah, I would say it's probably even more than the Avengers. And just like how well it uses everyone's powers and like bounces them off each other and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Okay, it's kind of an obvious choice, but my favorite scene from this movie is the airport fight. It's just too much fun.
My favorite scene in this movie is the final fight between Iron Man and Captain America.
Probably, I think the most impactful scene in the movie to me is when Captain America drops his shield. That had a pretty big impact, I would say.